reason why Alonzo stepped down is I've been listening and monitored many of them, but we're going to get deep into that tomorrow. But thoughts and comments on the United States government. Last week, FBI in New Jersey came out with putting, as I said, this week, many will be celebrating and elevating black women and mothers worldwide. But our sister Sada Shakur gift on Mother's Day is to be placed on the FBI 10 most wanted list, I think, along with one of the alleged Boston bombers' mother, Tamerlan and Zohar Naviv. But thoughts and comments on our sister Sada Shakur, who's in Cuba.
It's a remarkable thing. And when I traveled to Cuba, I won't get into the details of our visit there and who we saw when we was there, but it was a remarkable thing. What's so remarkable about this, now you have an African-American president, because the FBI can't just elevate her to the list if the president doesn't want her on that list. He'll just call over there and say that's not going to happen at this particular time, date and time. But the fact that you would elevate her to the list in spite of the mountain of evidence as to what happened in that particular situation.
That's right.
We won't get into the details of the escape, but the mountain of evidence where you had even correctional officers saying that sympathizing with her, and to put her back on that list is just a travesty of justice.
That's right.
And the reality of the matter is, in a few years, President Barack Obama is going to be pardoning some people.
That's right.
And for her to be elevated in his second term, rather than being looking at being part, they're asking Israel is asking the Jonathan Pollard, the spy on the U.S. who identified where our submarines were, who caused the U.S. government to move nuclear subs all over the place, to be pardoned. Not anyone associated, but that's a whole nother story. Not anyone associated with him to help him do that, being added to that list. It's a travesty of justice, and we've got to say that. How does she get elevated during the administration of President Barack Obama? Not during not during the administration of George W. Bush.
That's right.
But secondly, and we won't get into this today, Brother Dunn, what does that say for the safety, viability of Cuba? Now, during this administration, Syria is being attacked. And let's face it, the attacks that are occurring in Syria now with the Israelis
just attacked them.
World
War III.
It's just is with the permission, with the instigation of the United States. And actually, you're doing it for the United States.
That's
because you don't want to put boots on the ground. So we're going to do some quid pro quo here.
Yes.
If you look at the countries that have been attacked during the course of this administration under the cover of a black president, because we're able to say, well, he's black, so he couldn't be doing it for that reason. And then you look at her being elevated to the list, and you look at where she resides in Cuba, the Cubans need to be careful.
That's right.
I'll just leave it at that.
One of the things we talked about, which I got to add to this and kind of expand the envelope, Al Sharpton, as you shared with me before, but there's been many stories that have been out about Al Sharpton working for the FBI, working for the United States government. I recently had one of my honored elders to share with me that Al is back wearing more wires than probably all the Raven coaches on the sideline, and he even went to Cuba some time ago to try to have a meeting with Sada Shakur to offer her up to the FBI. Thoughts and comments on Al Sharpton, because many people don't want to have this conversation. And I think as we talked about the counterintelligence program then, we have to revisit and talk about the counterintelligence program now operating in the black community.
Yeah, there were a number of documentaries produced on this. And I just think that that there's some questions that need to be answered. I'll leave it to that. And the reason why I say I'll leave it to that is because I told you in an event I attended in Howard, in Harlem, rather, with the Patrice Lumumba Association. And the brothers there decided to deal with it in a certain way of how they're going to deal with what happened at that event. And I'm going to get permission from them because I was I was an invitee to that event, and they made a conscious committee decision of how and I don't want to violate that about having a conversation with them before we go. They may be okay with it, but we made a commitment. And part of that commitment is what allows us to get information. So I'll just leave it at that for right now.
All right. Again, family, just tuning in, having a conversation with Dr. Tyrone Powers. And we'll take a few more of your calls before we wrap up. 410-761-1592. I promise you to get into the Andre Alonso story. But I will say this, of course, that we know that those are not the real reasons why he's leaving. And, of course, he destroyed many lives in the city, many teachers, institutions in terms of historic schools in the city, historic communities in this town. And Tisha Edwards was his partner in crime. But I promise I'll get into that tomorrow. But if you got a question for Dr. Powers, you can get in on the conversation. 410-761-1592. You can get in where you fit in and fit in where you get in on the conversation. The other thing I got to add to this, Doc, is we talked about the governor, and I think that the big gang is the MOB, as Tupac would say, money over. He would say money over BITCHs, but clearly we have Miller, O'Malley, and Bush, which are the biggest gangs right now operating in the state of Maryland. When we look at the three of them single-handedly can use bullying tactics against state legislators, against their fellow legislators to push off or to delay this important hearing, which should have been taking place tomorrow. Thoughts and comments on that?
Yeah, and that's a remarkable thing because the reason he's able to do that is because the people allow that too. So right. I've always said this over and over again. At some point, with programs like yours, Brother Dern, the time period that you've been on, at some point, we've got to go past rhetoric and begin to educate others so that he doesn't have the power to do this. Because right now, to be honest with you, as he runs for this presidency, he's going to buy off so many black right. people going to be wearing T-shirts.
That's right.
And going to be smiling and dancing, and they're going to be so much money paid, and he's
right.
going to try to silence so many others.
That's right.
By hook or crook. And this is the beginning of that.
Right.
To take an important and significant national
right.
public safety issue and to kill the transparent hearings on that at this early stage in the process. This is the beginning of what's going to continue to happen. And unless we are aware of that now, of how this happened, how devastating this is to not only the correction system, but to the citizens of Baltimore, to what we do on the streets of Baltimore, to the crime picture that we're looking at.
That's
unless
right.
we clearly understand the connection between the two, then it's only going to get worse. And we can do this from a very analytical standpoint. The thing that I think many people like about what you do here is you bring them facts. You tell them to connect the dots. You say, I'm not telling you what to think. I'm telling you to think. Go look at this. Go put this together. Because if we don't do that, we're dooming our children.
That's right. Yes,
we're
sir.
dooming our children
That's right.
To devastation. This is a town
right.
that hates its children.
That's right.
And we've
and have proven that they will sacrifice them. Some have called it, I think Reverend Heath used to call it Baltimore.
And the Frankenstein theory that we've always, whatever you create, you eventually confront.
That's right.
Don't get yelling about being jacked at your car
right.
by one of the monsters you created by your
That's
misfeasance and malfeasance.
Yes, sir. All right, we'll take these last two calls, and then we're going to get some closing comments. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the State of the City.
Hey, Brother Muhammad. Yeah, I just want to say that you're doing a good thing, man. And if people don't believe that Martin O'Malley's a crook, man, they need to watch the season 4 of The Wire, because that's been everything.
All right. Yes, sir. Thank you, brother. So you say this is a combination of The Wire, The Corner, Homicide, and all of the above, brother. As you name it. This is what we're seeing. This will be the last call for the day. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the State of the City.
Hi, Brother Muhammad.
How you
Dr.
doing?
Powell. This is Cookie K. Hill.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to find out some information. When they lock people up at Central Booking, they give them some kind of shot. They inject them with something. Do you know what it is?
I don't know.
I'm not familiar with it. I mean, I guess something we can look into, but I'm not familiar with it offhand.
Yeah, they do give these people a shot when they come down there. They don't tell them anything.
Okay. Thank you, Mama. All right. And with that, Doc, let's get some closing comments. And, of course, we've got to have you come back to do a part 2 on this, man, as this story continues to grow. Don't just have legs. It got wings, cicada-sized wings, or maybe some bigger wings when we look at what's been going on. But it's really the injustice toward the family and then the good correctional officers that we got to let them know that we have their back as well, and the good in-state employees that go in and out of the correction centers around this state right now.
And I think that's what you said as you started the show, and you've been saying, or started the program. The show is on other stations. This is not not entertainment.
No,
but,
this is a flood.
But as you said when you started the program, the key to this is to find out, is to look at the systemic problems and the people who are involved who are not right in our face. Because again, we can yell and scream at Tavon White. We can yell and scream at the young ladies who became impregnated by Tavon White, maybe by Tavon White. We ain't did the Maury Povich show.
That's
we ain't opened no envelopes yet.
Yes, sir.
But allegedly,
right.
by Tavon White. But that won't resolve the issue. We have to demand these hearings, and when they take place, now that they've been politically moved,
right.
When they take place, we've got to show up, and we've got to make sure that the relevant questions are asked. We've got to compile those questions now, and every day If we have some, you
gonna put
talk
together
about
a forum.
different communication things that you have, we got to compile those questions
Yes,
down.
sir. All right.
Otherwise, it'll only get worse.
Contact number once again and information where you can be reached.
tpowers@aacc.edu, tpowers@aacc.edu, or bropowers, BROPOWERS, at AOL.com.
All right. And as we wrap up, of course, Doc, talk about the importance of supporting, because, I think we're in this campaign season, as some have already begun, and we see those trying to attack our sister Delegate Carter. When we see how they work to remove a Councilwoman Belinda Conaway and other strong elected officials, and I'm clear that they would like to have our sister in the crosshairs now, because she's been one of the few that's been standing up around this issue and asking the relevant questions that need to be asked.
I just can't say enough. We've got to support Delegate Jill Carter, because I just can't tell you how many battles she fought. I know it get lonely down there. I know
Yes,
I know you can go into a deep depression, and if you haven't consumed alcohol and drugs, you can at least consider it, even if you don't do it.
That's right.
So we've got to support. We can't just keep saying we need black leaders.
Right.
Get black leaders, and then leave them to suffer alone, both financially,
right.
$1, whatever you have. You've got to support her, and then you've got to support her by letting others know that a threat to her is a threat to us in some form or fashion or other. Otherwise, we're never going to have strong black politicians. I mean, Jill is a unique person, because in spite of us, she continued to fight. A lot of other people would have walked away a long way ago. Even Randall Robinson wrote a book called Leaving America.
Quitting America.
Quitting America with his back turned to us. So that is so important and significant. And I also hope that people continue to support you here, Brother Durham, with what you try to do, because as this Martin O'Malley steamship rolled on, brother, you're going to come under some increasing...
We have to. We expect
some increasing attacks.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother. Love you. And, of course, we'll have you back on, man, soon and very soon. So we're going to wrap up, get up out of here, make way for the program that's coming behind us. Little Africa Voice of the People coming up with Mama Annie Chambers and the family, speaking of one of our revolutionaries. So I thank all of you that tuned in today. Get a copy of the show. Give me a call, 410-878-5298. And we'll be back here tomorrow at 12 noon, and we'll thank our sponsors then. So until then, thank you, Dr. Powers, and God bless. All the best and the rest of you and yours. We will podcast the show on Spreaker and on our Facebook page and Twitter page. So until tomorrow, 12 noon, peace.
Let me show you the way to go.